Very good morning. It's Penuel, the Black Pen. I did post on my Instagram stories, Facebook, and my WhatsApp status that I'll be making this video this morning at 8. I see I'm a bit late now. I'm going to try and rush through it. One of the big stories that came out yesterday is the liquidation of Drip Footwear. For people that may not know, Drip Footwear is a huge sneaker brand that is founded and based in South Africa, founded by Lekau, Sehoana, a boy from Tembisa that had made so many mistakes in business, lost so much money, and claims that he started Drip with 4,600, I think, or 4,700, 4,000 something, selling sneakers out of, well, we'd call it the boot of his car, but he didn't have much at the time. Within a couple of years, the business would become a roaring success, with it picking up more especially during the COVID lockdown era. He wasn't the only one. Theo Baloy's Batu, which is another big footwear brand, also went berserk, and they're still kind of doing well. We don't know what will happen to them, but Drip Footwear, unfortunately, is now being forced into liquidation. A liquidation is basically where it has been found that your business is insolvent. Insolvent means that the money you're getting in, your income, is not enough to cover your expenses, your debt, more especially your debt, because your debt has what's called creditors, the people you owe. This could be landlords that you're renting from. It could be suppliers that are supplying your sneakers. It could be loans that you took out for your business. That is called your liabilities. Those are called your creditors. And when the income you're making cannot, over a decent period, pay these people, you cannot come up with a decent arrangement to pay these people, you then go into forced liquidation. And what they do with liquidation is they take all the assets that you have, or as many as are necessary, and they sell those to whoever will buy them at an auction or somewhere else. And they take the proceeds of that cash and then they pay all your creditors, or as much of them as possible, including sometimes your employees. You may find that you owe your employees money and you take that money. They send a court order, people that feel aggrieved, creditors that feel like this person hasn't paid, it's been a while, they approach the courts, they apply for some type of remedy, and then they'll send professionals to go and assess the financial situation of that business. And then from there, they make a final ruling to say we are forcing this company into liquidation. We will send the sheriff to go and fetch cars, trucks, other assets that can be sold so that we can make sure that these creditors get paid. And Drip Footwear is currently going through a forced liquidation. I put some notes here outside of Lekau Sehoana's amazing story, dirt poor from a township, from an informal settlement at Tembisa. I had the privilege of sitting with him with DJ Sbu on the Hustlers Corner / the Virtual Nkuku. We were sitting at a homegrown farm. I believe it's in Centurion. And I remember being open and honest. It's something that I did with DJ Sbu as well on the Hustlers Corner, Virtual Nkuku, sitting with Theo Baloy of Batu, where I said, look, I was one of the haters. I was one of the people that was like, these businesses are not making sense. Why are they so successful? How do they make so much money? Why are they scaling so quick? I have an accounting background. I have a finance background. I have an economics background. I've worked in banking. I've studied financial statements. I've invested in businesses. So I understand cash flow. I understand assets and liabilities. I understand marketing. I understand financial statements, your income statement, balance sheet. It was not making sense. As much as the sneakers may be selling at a good price and making a high margin, the margin is basically your income or your selling price minus your cost of sales. So if a sneaker costs 1,500, but it costs you 500 Rand to make, you're making 1,000 Rand in profit. That is a very healthy margin. But even when the margin is healthy, there are other costs of running a business, so it was not making sense. I said it to Theo Baloy. I was like, I was one of your haters. I said it to Lekau Sehoana that, look, I was one of your haters. The maths was not making sense in my head. The biggest reason the maths was not making sense in my head was because both of them insist that they've never been funded. Both of them insist that, no, they bootstrapped. They use their own money to build this thing, and they've only been able to grow this thing from sales. I was like, that doesn't make sense in business. And now, sadly, I don't know with Drip if all my suspicions have been proven true. Because again, liquidation doesn't mean the business is not making money. Liquidation is saying that the money you're making is not enough to cover the bills you have to pay. You could be making 100 million rand a month, 100 million rand a month. But if your debt, you need to pay the bank, you need to pay loans that you took out, you need to pay your suppliers, you need to pay your employees, you need to pay your rent, you need to pay your marketing teams, you need to pay distribution agents. If that is above 100 million rand a month, you are technically insolvent over a while. So it's not just about income. You can't just say, oh, Drip is not making money. People have seen people wearing Drip sneakers. Ex-President Jacob Zuma, the now leader of Umkhonto weSizwe political party, is famous for wearing Drip wherever he goes. Drip has not only done that, Drip has, at some point, I think was the partner of Moroka Swallows, a PSL soccer team. You can see some of those pictures, the deal that they made. Lekau was there, signing these deals, sitting with these people. There was a time when they did a 100 million rand deal with Casper Nyovest. I remember being very annoyed at the time because, again, being the hater that I am, but also being the person that understands business, I was like, this is not a 100 million rand deal. What do you mean it's 100 million? People are like, yo, Drip gave Casper 100 million rand to put his name on a sneaker. Or maybe Casper put 100 million rand in Drip. And I was like, that doesn't make sense at all. Number one, the money that they're making, it cannot validate a 100 million rand deal. Number two, maybe there's something we're not understanding. Lekau would go onto platforms, be asked this question, and people didn't listen to those because that's not the stuff that's sexy and trends. But he was like, no, we called it a 100 million rand deal because myself and Casper Nyovest was saying our goal is to sell Casper Nyovest Drip collaboration sneakers to the value of 100 million. I know Batu had a similar deal with Somizi. I think there have been other celebrities that have partnered with a Drip, with a Batu, to be like, I want to have the Black Pen range of Drip, or the Black Pen range. You've got Jordans with Michael Jordan as an example. So I've got this shoe, this signature, where we're hoping that we will sell, I don't know how many pairs of sneakers that make us 100 million rand. It is a hope. It is not money in the bank. It is not something that is confirmed and guaranteed, but it sounds sexy. And Casper was there with his beard looking like Rick Ross. Lekau was there in his nice black suit as well with his shades. They signing Family Tree, Casper Nyovest collaboration with Drip, 100 million rand deal. It's in the papers. Everyone's talking about it. Yo, the boys have money. And I think at some point they may have both been driving McLaren cars. I'm not sure, but I think there was a time they were both driving McLarens. You're like, okay, the boys have made it. This is Billionaire Boys Club. This is Rock Boys. Jay-Z, Diddy, everyone is in. Rock Boys in the building. But it's not the way that it worked. That was the agreement. But that looked cool. Some of the things that happened, they released. Lekau would speak about them using the money from Drip to then release the Finesse fragrance, I think with DJ Z and Claire. And I think her husband, Murder Bongs, I stand to be corrected. They were the face of Finesse fragrance at some point. They would unleash a kiddies wear line called Kiddies Republic that have other businesses as well. And Lekau was seen everywhere. You are like, this is the South African dream. This is the township dream. This is the Kasi dream. This is hashtag Black excellence. This is hashtag Black child that is possible. And there's a very famous picture of Lekau dead drunk with some ugly ass hairstyle, looking dusty, half naked on a floor at some party. That I came from this to the next picture of him doing a professional photo shoot, wearing a suit, looking dapper with his hair bald, and you're like, guys, it's possible. This is an inspiring story. And now today we're hearing that about 5 years after it popped, it is now going into forced liquidation. Spoke about the McLaren. At some point, just like the Casper Nyovest deal for me was a huge red flag, another red flag would be how quick Drip and Batu would get into shopping malls and open so many shops in such a short space of time. I tried to think in my head that if you've ever dealt with a big shopping mall, the big ones, never mind the smaller ones, you're looking at rent of, if you're lucky, 50,000 rand a month, if you're lucky, but about 100,000 rand a month in rent. That's just rent. We're not talking employees. We're not talking marketing. We're not talking logistics costs. The number of sneakers you have to sell every single day to just cover rent, never mind the other costs, never mind your workers. And if you're ever walking in these malls, you'll see when you walk past that the shops are mostly empty. It will be sometime during festive season, maybe end of the month. I remember there was a time, I think last festive season and the one before that, where I'd walk past drip stores, I'd walk past Batu, and there'd be queues. And I'd be like, okay, maybe these guys actually made a lot of money up front. But it's not sustainable if every single day people are not coming into the store to buy sneakers, because there's a minimum you need to sell per store just to cover rent. Is this rent being covered by online shoe sales? So you make money online and then you take that money and you put it into the store to cover rent? Could it be that there's actually now a funder, an investor, to say, look, we will put up money for the rent so that you guys can push sales and increase your awareness so that this thing can become bigger? Could it be that maybe there's a BEE deal somewhere? The shopping mall has said, listen, we need BEE points. And what we're going to do for BEE points is we're going to do what's called enterprise development, or some type of skills development, maybe for your workers, or some BEE funding or benefits to say, we are going to give Theo Baloy and Lekau Sehoana free shop space in our mall, but then we're going to earn BEE points because we're giving it to them either for free or at a huge discount, or we're going to use it as a rebate for tax to say this is our contribution. We did this as a CSI run. We did this as charity, investing in the black child, investing in businesses that can inspire other kids and that can create employment. I was trying to rack my head around how are they getting this thing right. At some point, Drip would have 25 stores, I believe, in shopping malls. As of recently, they were down to 14, 1-4. And all of these 14 stores have had to be closed. There's a communication that has been trending on Twitter where it's being explained to the employees that they have to leave. The shops are being closed. The sheriff is going to come through and take everything that they're gonna go sell. There were employees that were complaining that they didn't even receive their salaries for September. It's a mess. And a store like Drip is not just the store that you see. There are warehouses that are needed to have the stock. If you know Pick and Pay, Spar, Woolies, they have what's called distribution warehouses. There's another term for them. Not a depot, but they've got these huge warehouses where all the stores, a store has its own little warehouse at the back, but the stores go to these central, there's a term for it, the central what, distribution depot, warehouse, or whatever, where all the stores send their trucks, or the trucks come and they deliver all those groceries. The same thing happens to something like footwear. There's going to be a central warehouse that you have to pay for, and warehouse rent is heavy. You're going to send vehicles, or vehicles are going to be dispatched from there to go and populate, go and supply the stock to all the stores. Unfortunately, my understanding is they don't manufacture at home. I could be wrong. But if they were manufacturing at home, then they'd also have factories where they manufacture the Drip, the Batu, the Vaya, whatever sneaker brand that you have. My understanding is that they import a lot of these products and then they resell here. The V&A waterfront, one of the stories that came out is the Drip store there had owed over 1 million rand in rent. It had been a couple of months. The V&A waterfront went to go and get an eviction notice. They closed that store, and I can imagine most of the other retail stores for Drip and the malls are going to be doing the same. Okay. Another big red flag for me was the billboards. Inspiring. I remember DJ Spoo at the time. We were shooting the Hustlers Corner in Virtual Mkugu. He'd make a video. Black child, it's possible. Black excellence. You drive up on the M2, I think, highway, M2 North, from the Johannesburg CBD going towards Sandton, Midrand, all the way to places like Centurion, etc. And you just see Drip billboards everywhere. You drive around parts of Johannesburg, Gauteng, I think around the country. That didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me. It was one of the questions I asked Lekau. How are you guys able to afford this? The cost of billboards, I don't have the number for, but for anyone that would know, it is prime retail space. It is prime space for marketing. Abo Prime Media, Abo JC Lekau, they own these companies. where when you're driving past, they'll tell you 14,000 cars drive past you. That's insane real estate for people to see your brand. And I asked Lekau, are you guys pushing sales and sneakers through these things? Because there's a cost benefit. Maybe if I pay 100 Rand to Facebook to boost my post, I can make money. Maybe if I pay 10,000 Rand for a magazine advert, it'll boost and I'll make money. Maybe if I pay Penuel the Black Pen for his social media to give a shout out in his podcast, maybe I'll get traction. Maybe if I get a radio slot for 30 seconds, maybe if I advertise during a primetime TV slot, which can be 100,000 Rand for 30 seconds, maybe I'll make money. If I'm going on a billboard campaign, are you guys really making the money? And Lekau at the time would say it's not so much B2C, business to consumer or to client. We were getting a lot of B2B business to business, where people are now either they're buying the drip product or they like, look, we can see your business is doing something. Can you guys bring us stock for PPE, protective gear for mines, for factories, because you guys look like you're running a great operation. Can you help us in various ways? And we'll give you money for that. He said there was a lot of B2B business that came at the time, but that was a huge red flag for me. Like the malls, I was thinking, are there investors that have put money for this? One of the things I was scared of is, could this be a money laundering exercise? Someone is like, look, we've been cleaning money through churches, we've been cleaning money through political parties, we've been cleaning money through clubs, through Amashisa Nyama. We now need a new avenue, and this looks like a dope avenue to clean money. We're going to give you money to go and put yourself on all these billboards, pay our Prime Media, JC Lekau, these outdoor ad guys. And then when you guys sell sneakers, you can then take that income and then pay us in some way for this money. This is not anything that's happened. It's not anything I'm claiming has happened. That was one of the dark thoughts I had, because I understand the business world. I understand how dark it gets. Money gets cleaned through non-profit organizations, through political parties, through some of the friendliest businesses that you know. And I was like, could this be a money laundering transaction where you may find that, oh, Lekau, if it was money laundering, we're not even involved. An investor comes and says, look, I want to put in 50 million. I want you guys to advertise through this platform. But then I'm going to need this money to be brought back via sneaker sales. Like, good shot, good job, good shot. But you may find that there's a money laundering transaction because there's too much money to be spent in outdoor ads. And the way Drip branded, even the biggest brands, Nike, Adidas, Puma, would never go on a campaign like that. It's too costly. So I didn't understand. Then I thought, like the shopping centers, that, oh, this might be Prime Media, JC Lekau doing like a BEE transaction or a tax rebate transaction to be like, hey, look, we're going to do this to uplift the black child. So we'll give them billboards for free, for cheap. We'll do it as a BEE transaction so that we get funding from the government. We'll maybe do it as a CSI initiative where we get tax rebates. I was like, okay, maybe that's the case here. One of the things I'd find out when I sat with Lekau is that one of the people on their board was a lady that had sat on the board of Prime Media. Light bulb. I'm like, oh, this lady must have been the one to organize the deal for them. It made sense for me. But at the time, I was like, this is a huge red flag. I don't get it. I'm a hater. I've never built a big business. I've failed in business. Maybe this is how people move. And because I'm a fucking loser, I'm like, okay, I'm just hating. But it looked amazing. It inspired so many people. I remember at some point, Nota would go on a platform to claim that he knew the deal and that it was a deal for Prime Media, saying Drip can brand everywhere, and they were doing it to show the packages, the different packages that they had for marketing. That was never confirmed by Lekau or anyone else as far as I know. One of the controversies that would come out would be Usisi Uglenda Ndlanzi, may she rest in peace, who was the managing director of Drip. She was gunned down in a spray of bullets going home a couple of years ago. It would be a story that would shock and rattle so many people. I think Lekau needed to get bodyguards at the time. She was the MD of Drip. And now you start asking questions of, are these businesses involved in Ushigashiga? It was one of the questions that was asked when DJ Somebody was gunned down. May he rest in peace. One of the questions that was asked when AKA was murdered. That was this guy involved in some underworld somewhere and someone wanted to take him out. Very scary. Very scary. May she rest in peace. But then people started asking questions. It wouldn't help that there'd be someone that said that they borrowed Lekau money and they wanted their money back and Lekau was not paying them back. Now you start saying, but you guys said you didn't have funders. You guys said that you didn't get loans. So who are these people claiming that you owe them money? But that was one of the dark things, and again, one of the things that raised concerns. Then Lebogang Sehoana would go on Madam Speaker's platform a couple of months ago, I think it is now, speaking about how Idrop was mostly her idea, speaking about how Lekau became the face, speaking about how they got married, they have a child, how he became too cool for school, how he claimed that he had politicians in his pocket and celebrities in his pocket and the courts in his pocket if ever she went up against him. They'd gotten separated, their marriage had gotten sour. And at the time she sat with Madam Speaker, Lebogang, she said, we're still officially married. There's no such thing as a divorce, but yes, we are in the process of splitting. This guy's not maintaining his child. The place where we're staying in Waterfall, very expensive property, we are being evicted from it. This guy's not paying the rent there. But I see him living his best life, traveling, being seen with celebrities at parties. At some point, he claimed he was overseas because his life was in danger. Next thing, he's being seen at parties saying things like, if I said I was in Paris and you're seeing me in Santon, I'm in Paris. Don't ask questions. This guy became too cool. And many people really, really were triggered by her story. She broke down, she cried. This guy had become so hot and hip, and his business had become so successful. He'd forgotten his wife. He'd forgotten his child. He'd abandoned his family, which was the story that was being sold out there. And many people, I think at the time, then started saying, maybe there are things we don't know about this business. Because she raised some of the issues that they had as a business to be like, things are not as rosy as you people think. Things are not as glamorous as you think. It's actually tough in the back end. And this guy's not being honest about certain things. There'd be stories. There've been stories for months, maybe if not a year or two, about some of the struggles. Because this is not the first time creditors are going for Drip. By the way, the big creditors going for Drip are an advertising platform. I don't know if it's called Wide Open, for advertising services, where Drip owes them 20 million rand. 20 million rand for advertising fees. I can imagine they've been trying to recoup that money and failing. There have been foreign exchange, forex transactions, I think in importing maybe product, where there were issues with Drip. The South African Reserve Bank withheld, if I'm not mistaken, or penalized them to a tune of 3.6 million rand. Now you hear some of the tax stories that you'll hear from DJ Sbu, Zwaibala had tax issues as well. There could have been tax issues as well. Are you managing your tax affairs the way you should be? Because when SARS comes for you, you cannot breathe. They choke you. They put their fucking foot on your neck like George Floyd. So the business had been struggling. And again, when you get to liquidation because of insolvency, does not necessarily mean you're not making money. You could have bought a pair of Drip last week. Your company could have bought 50 pairs of Drip last month. You could have seen people line up at a Drip store. The business is making money, but now their expense and liability obligations are higher than the income. That's where the discrepancy lies. You can see a rich guy living in a mansion, have 5 cars. The guy makes 2 million rand a month, but the installments on the cars, the installments on the houses, his kids' private school fees, his other debts that he has, his black tax, his other things might be 2.5 million a month. He makes 2 million. His obligations per month, 2.5 million. And now he has to go and loan more money to cover this shortfall. And if in any given month he stops making 2 million and he makes 1.5 million or 1 million, the guy's still making a lot of money. But his obligations are 2.5 million when his cars are being repossessed, when he's being evicted from his house and his house is being repossessed by the bank, when his kids are being kicked out of the private school. You're like, Donna, I work at the bank. I saw this guy made 1.5 million this month alone. So I don't understand how his things are being repossessed. His expense and liability obligations are higher than his income. Therefore, he is technically insolvent. Okay. Lebogang Maile, big ANC heavyweight, linked to what's known as the Alex Mafia with Paul Mashatile, I think Omzwandile Masina as well. He'd go on a platform to say that Drip needs to be saved. This would then prove the allegations that Lebogang Sehoana had said, that Lekau had said, I've got politicians in my pocket. These are ANC heavyweights. I believe is the MEC of Economic Development, if I'm not mistaken, in Gauteng. Okay, Lekau is uvusa Uvuta, rather, his political friends. These are big boys to be like, no, we must help this. So we are now thinking ANC is going to get money together. Some of their friends in business, some of their entrepreneur friends are going to pump money into Drip to save it. It seems that didn't happen. But it's like, oh, okay, these guys have got friends in high places who are willing to go on platforms to be like, no, we must save this business. The South African Reserve Bank must remove this 3.6 million penalty that they've put on. Other people must maybe wipe off the debts. It hasn't happened. Will it still happen? We don't know now that this company is being in forced liquidation. Can it still be salvaged? This is part of my issue as I wrap up this video. The South African government, championed by the ANC government, speaks a big game about job creation, speaks a big game about low unemployment. We have seen state-owned enterprises being bailed out to the tune of billions, whether it be the SABC, whether it be Eskom, whether it would be Transnet. There'd be so many state-owned enterprises, even the post office, which is now fucked. Even the post office would burn billions of rands. And part of the argument was it's to preserve jobs. You'd find out later that the post office administration was not even paying your UIF, was not paying tax. It was a mess. I'm still surprised that that didn't become a huge scandal. Heads have not been rolling and people are not even being jailed. It's actually a huge scandal. African Bank, unsecured lending, would go into reckless lending. At the time, Leon Kirkinis was the CEO. They'd be bailed out by the South African Reserve Bank. They'd be bailed out by the big banks. Your Absa, Standard Bank, Nedbank, Standard, Absa, Nedbank, who am I forgetting? Absa, Standard, Nedbank. I don't know if I put Capitec in there. FNB, my apologies. FNB is the other big boy. They would then own a stake of African Bank. They'd go into not sequestration. They had someone that was overseeing the affairs. The jargon, the terms fail me now. Sequestration, custodian, trustee, liquidator. No. There were people that were basically managing the affairs of African Bank to try and get it back into the green from the red. They would be bailed out to billions. The argument, jobs. The argument, these businesses serve society. Who gets to be saved? Which business gets to be bailed out? You've got the GEPF, the Government Employee Pension Fund, which the bulk of its money goes to the PIC, the Public Investment Corporation, where your politicians and all their friends hemorrhage money. If ever one day someone does an in-depth investigative journalist documentary on the PIC, on all the deals that have been made to some of your favorite businesses, including your Steinhoff with Marcus Jooste, who passed on from taking his life apparently. The money that has been hemorrhaged, the money that has been lost, but life goes on because it's business as usual. Your friends in politics, your friends in business. Small Enterprise Funding Agency. You've got the NEF, the National Empowerment Fund. You've got every province has got its own fund. In Gauteng, we've got the GEP, the IDC, which does big deals for people that manufacture. I mentioned the PIC. There's banks. Who gets to decide, especially when it's government mandated, that Drip will be saved? About 300 jobs are at stake. Those are 300 families. If you multiply it by maybe 5 people, that's 1,500 lives that are going to be affected. At the very least, those 1,500 lives, they buy from stores. They pay school fees. They buy from small businesses. There's a huge ripple effect of how many people are going to suffer. There are DSTV premiums. There are medical aid. There are bank fees. There are umama that they buy vegetables from. There's going to be a ripple effect of other people that are going to catch heat if we allow Drip to collapse. That is not to say that we must not punish bad business practice. Lekau Sehoana can lose the business. He can lose a stake. Other people who are maybe living large can be removed from the business. But you save the business so that money is being made, so that families can eat. Part of the issue that we have is even the shopping centers themselves. Are they willing to maybe be like, let's lower your rent? Let's go in, because this is rent money that comes in. There are people's lives at stake here. But also as a shopping center, we also need to make money. But can we meet each other halfway so that you can stay in business? I remember meeting a legend, icon in property in Johannesburg, Mr. Gerald Olitsky, OPH, Olitsky Property Holdings. They own a big chunk of property in the Johannesburg CBD. Believe he's a Jewish businessman, used to be a lawyer, went into property, owned a lot of businesses. At the time when I opened my fish and chip shop, Penwell's Fish and Chips, back in 2012, I would have the pleasure and the privilege of meeting him. Not only would I meet him, I'd meet the founders of Nando's, Fernando Duarte and Robbie Brosen. And they would say they also know Mr. Olitsky. And we would speak about this idea of it is in the best interest of the landlord for the business to do well so that the tenant can continue paying rent. Mr. Olitsky, when I spoke to him, was like, I want you to succeed. Because if you succeed, I get rent, I make money, and that means you can also expand, which means I can give you more spaces to make money from and then to pay me. So some of these shopping centers, which now, if these stores close, it's going to be empty. Now there's no rental income at all they're making. Now the employees are not making money. If the employees are not making money, the taxis they were using to catch to go to work are not making money. Or mama that are selling bananas and apples, that are selling scones, coffee, for the employees that were going to work are not going to be making money. The spaza shops that they support, it could be obviously owned by illegal foreigners. They're not going to be making money. These are some of the things we need to think about. And this is the drip story. A few months down the line, a few years down the line, what if a similar story comes out with Theo Baloy and Batu? And then it becomes sad again. Can the government not intervene? Drip could be the South African Nike, the South African Adidas, the South African Puma. Yes, Lekau doesn't have to run it. He came up with it himself and his wife, Ulebohang. But this is a beautiful story of what is possible. The government can come in. Schools can say we will use drip wear for our kids instead of any other product that goes to America, that goes to Germany, that goes to China. We can do this here. We can look with the IDC of how to industrialize so that drip Batu are actually being manufactured here with huge government subsidies to say, we will make this a South African success story. The apartheid Afrikaner government understood the power of subsidies in agriculture, in retail, in manufacturing, and they built industries. Our government should have the same foresight to say, this could be something great. Just like Moroka Swallows, the Springboks can wear drip, Batu, Vaya, Tsepo jeans, Maxhosa. Our politicians can be like, we proudly wear Maxhosa because it is a South African brand and we want to be part of the success story because it creates jobs for all of us. We all wear Tsepo jeans. We all wear drip, Batu, Vaya, whatever they can. We all drink more fire, which is now the sponsor, one of the sponsors of Miss South Africa. We are all patriotic, not because we care about Lekau, Theo Baloy, DJ Sbu, Latuma, Utsepo. We don't care about these people. Who the fuck them? We care about South African businesses thriving because if they thrive, it means we can export and bring in foreign currency. It means we can create jobs for our family members. It means we can boost other businesses out there and we can become a player in the world. We can have our own Kanye West, Cassper Nyovest, Somizi, who is now going to be the face of a Batu, a drip, like Michael Jordan, etc. out there. And it becomes a beautiful story to tell. Instead of another Lokshan culture story. What happened to Lokshan culture? Uwanda no Schab. What happened to the Lokshan culture story? I remember reaching out to them and I think one of them responded back. It would be a few years later where one of them would pass on. What happened to that story? Why did we not preserve the story of Lokshan culture? Why do we not preserve the stories of some of the great brands and things that we create? Chicken Licken almost died, George Sombonos. They would have Joe Mafelas, Goodies Nice, Ustumo, being their face, an influencer before we knew what influencers were. They almost died. They were rescued by Hot Wings. We've got so many businesses that collapse. And it doesn't mean that all businesses must be saved. Don't get me wrong. But who gets to be saved? Why does African Bank get to be saved, but the Vendor Building Society, VBS, can't be saved? People's monies were lost. There were savings over a lifetime of Ogogo, Omkulu, and other people there. Fuck the people running it. Put them in jail, get them penalized, write them off. Preserve the institution. If you're willing to preserve the SABC and ESCOM and all these because you feel they are fundamentally important, preserve the institution. Get rid of the bad apples. I think that's what I wanted to say to you guys this morning. Yeah, I've gone through all my notes. Looking forward to reading your comments. Sorry, the last thing I will say is I do have a relationship with Lekau Sehoana. I sat with him, I don't know if it was this year or last year, at the social media awards. There were some social media awards. We were at the same table and we were both laughing at the fact that we both have social anxiety and we don't like crowded spaces that much. Of course, I sat with him at DJ Spoo at the Hustler's Corner, along with sitting with Theo Baloy as well. I had a chat with him during the time when his wife did the podcast with Madam Speaker. I would make a video sharing my thoughts about that as well. I'd speak to him when the liquidation story was starting. And even yesterday when the story broke out, I sent him a message. You may not understand if you've never owned a business. And we can blame Lekau for many things, trying to be cool. There are many people that focus too much on being celebrities than actually running a business. And he might be one of the people that's guilty. We don't know. There are people that run business and are not famous at all. But business is hard, man. I was with DJ Spoo yesterday, and there's a podcast episode that's going to come out in future where one of the things he was also emphasizing is, what business? Hey, what business? Yo. Business is tough. I've got a book, The Rise and Fall of the NSC, the National Savings Club, which chronicles my business failures. Business is hard. Having people that rely on you is hard. I recorded Amped Studios in Newtown, shopping center Newtown Junction. There's actually a bar to a trip there. The Pick and Pay is closed. I'm friends with the manager there, Opa. Shout out to Opa. He was speaking about how difficult it was letting the staff know that they're going to have to be retrenched. People crying, speaking about their children, their livelihood. This is Pick and Pay. This is not VBS. This is not Drip. This is Pick and Pay. A solid business built by Raymond Ackerman, who we lost, may he rest in peace. Struggling. Business is hard, boy. And this is now one of the stories which entrepreneurs, young kids need to learn from. I hope Lekau doesn't cower in this failure and hide. This would be the greatest time. I mean, even someone like Skinny Spoo. I want 5 million for Skinny Spoo socks. These are the times to actually do podcasts. These are the times to go on platforms and be like, how we made it, the success, where we lied, where we made mistakes, how we failed. And then maybe, how can we learn from this and rebuild? How can we pivot? I said to Lekau that I'm hoping we can have a chat. It may not be on a platform, it may be privately. Has this affected the whole group as a whole? Has it affected the Finesse Fragrance? Has it affected Kitty's Republic? Has it affected some of the other businesses they've owned? Is he willing to open up about some of the money he spent that he maybe should have not spent, either in his personal capacity or even in the business? We wasted a lot of money on these things, which ended up doing nothing for us. Maybe we should have done more. One of the conversations, hard conversations we need to have is, can you actually manufacture products in this country? Are the labor laws keeping us away from actually industrializing South Africa? If arguably a Batu Drip Via still have to import product from China, Vietnam, South Korea, India, is government doing enough to subsidize so that we can manufacture at home? Are we paying our employees too much? It is not a lot. Minimum wage is not a lot, but maybe it's already too high. And that's why people will hire Zimbabweans, Mozambicans, people from Eswatini, Lesotho, Botswana, because you can underpay them. You are violating labor laws, but you're like, this is why I have a business in Tonayam, because I actually hire foreigners to do my thing and I underpay them. We need to have these hard conversations. Can we actually build an economy when we're pretending like we know what business is. The British colonizers built an economy off of the back of mining, exploiting labor, including labor from our neighboring countries. This was before the borders were solidified. People from Lesotho, Eswatini, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Botswana, they were mining in this country. Mining. It wasn't just South Africans. And then the Afrikaner apartheid government came in and they set up laws that were exploiting black people. Black people were relegated to townships. They were underpaid. And because of that and the subsidies, they managed to build the economies, Afrikaner economies. Now we want to build black business and black economies, but we don't have the same advantages of the colonizers. We don't have the advantages of apartheid. So the only people that seem to be succeeding now are the ones that are exploiting illegal, undocumented foreigners. The hospitality industry now, shout out to Michali, I forget her surname, the lady who broke the news on the Babel or Bubble restaurant. And now the whole labor department has been investigating. What have the labor law officers been doing this whole time if not investigating businesses? None is dry, but it blew open this industry. The restaurants have got foreigners. Some of the construction companies have got undocumented foreigners there. Some retail stores have got undocumented foreigners. The lady that is watching your kids is an undocumented foreigner. Some schools hire undocumented foreigners. The people, we have got a slave labor class in this country that is not South African. Because South Africans, with their pathetic minimum wage, are too expensive. How do we remedy that? How do we give every employee an RDP? Good quality free education, good quality free healthcare, cheap buses, cheap or free trains and taxis, so that you've got a home that government supplied, your kids are studying for free, government supplied, you have free healthcare, government supplied, your transport is dirt cheap. Therefore, the entrepreneur can now pay you very little because they don't have to pay for all these other things. Government has sorted them out. Government has also subsidized them. They've also gotten BEE funding. They are also getting all these advantages. We're making sure that they get skills. So the schools are working in hand with the economy. But all these things are broken. All of them are broken. And we're not having honest conversations about what it takes to run business. And when Penal criticizes these businesses, I'm a hater. I'm like, the maths doesn't make sense. Kanjani mfethu uhlanganisa ibhizinisi enjena when I know what business is. Nah, you're just hating. Yeah, guys like Footwear, it's because it's not white people and Afrikaners. They fucking struggle as well, boy. They struggle. These big juggernauts, Steinhoff, I think Stutterfords, I mentioned Pick and Pay, they fucking struggle. Massmart, which is under Walmart now, they've struggled. They've closed game stores. These are Jewish businesses now, when you're like, the Jews. Muslims that I know, some of their businesses collapse. The spaza shop industry is being run on a slave model, where people are in a hot container for 16 hours a day, from 6 o'clock till 10 o'clock at night, sleeping there, dressed in second-hand clothes, selling at dirt cheap margins, selling even expired foods, because that becomes the only way to compete. The taxi industry run by guns has got taxis that are falling apart. They pay bribes. The taxi is koro. Ukibeli tax, if you want to get home safe. And it's how it's sustained. We are not having honest conversations about what it takes to actually run a business. And these become the case studies of where we can have honest chats about what it takes for the young child, the young black child in particular, to actually compete out there. I'll stop here. Have a great and blessed day. Again, looking forward to catching up with you guys in the comments. Pen you while the swart pen, the black pen, pene ensu, ipene limnyama, siwe lunsundu. Yeah, man, Lekau, lebohang. Yeah, we'll chat.